most especially when the world does not. Amen. As most of you know, I did not know Laura until just a few years ago. Laura came to us as a sensitive individual who was suffering from a world of hurt. As Carlos said, she was so incredibly intelligent, but her soul was deeply troubled, and she struggled immensely to understand and relate to a society and a world that just did not get her. Her personal struggles were numerous, but what brought her to us was not any of that. It was abandonment. Laura was totally forsaken by the very institution that she trusted the most. The pain and suffering she experienced as a result ripped her apart. I was grateful that we could offer Laura some commiseration and a spirit of community in the midst of her turmoil. But it was not nearly enough. As most of you know, much more than I do, Laura gave people her heart and her soul. When she did, the world had a tendency to take them from her and not give them back. But it was not the world that destroyed Laura's psyche. It was her church. At the time in her life when she was the most vulnerable, they took advantage of her and eventually sacrificed her to protect themselves. Instead of caring for her when she was crying out for help, they rejected her and literally threw her out. They actually took legal action to prevent her from seeking their help. Now, we can talk about car accidents all we want, but what killed Laura was a church that tossed her onto a burning fire, like Joan of Arc. We are here to talk about what happened to Laura.
She passed away. That's it. We love her, and you're going to...
And so did we, sir. And that's why we spent so much time caring for her. I'm sorry, but I cannot handle a church that hurts people. I just cannot do it. And I'm not blaming that entire institution, but that's what happened to her. And it just kills me inside. And I just cannot let it stand, because if we let it stand, this is going to keep happening to people like Laura that deserve so much better. The church was more concerned with protecting their institution than they were about taking care of her and all the vulnerable. Sacrificing one woman for the sake of the corporate church was a no-brainer for them, so they made it impossible for her to come anywhere near them, and they made sure that every clergy in that organization never reached out to her to help her. And I cannot let that stand, and I will not let that stand. It's unconscionable. If each of us are going to honor the legacy of Laura Rodriguez, then this is what we need to do. Each of us needs to always reach out, as Jesus taught us, to care first for the most hurt and vulnerable around us. But we must also stand up against any institution that deliberately rejects the most vulnerable around us. We can't stand idly by when the very organization that is called by God to protect those who are suffering the most actually destroy them. So I want us to always stand up against that cycle of abuse until it ends forever. And that is what's going to make Laura proud, and that's what's going to help us to always live into her legacy. Laura deserved much, much more And we were so happy that we had the opportunity to care for her in that process. And I'm sorry if that's upset some people, but I cannot let this stand. Laura's too important to let it go.